Feng Qingjue, the great hero of Xuanyuan Kingdom and the god of war general. Who knows, he is actually her. In order to have a future for the Feng family, she decided to have her subordinates tie anyone back on the street and become the mother of her future child who will die for a long time. Unexpectedly years later, the first young master of Xuanyuan held his son who looked 7 times like him and said, "Qingjue, I am willing to be the mother of 2 children. Can you not say that I am dead?" Chapter 1. Leave Father and Leave Son. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On October 20th, the imperial capital, which was supposed to have a curfew tonight, was brightly lit. All of this is because the young war god of Xuanyuan Kingdom defeated the northern desert and successfully regained the lost Baozhu Pass and Xingyue Prefecture 23 years ago. At the same time, he dealt a heavy blow to the northern desert army, forcing them to withdraw from their original territory. The Holy Emperor was pleased with this and ordered the entire imperial capital to celebrate for 3 days, in order to sweep the dust for General War God. However, in a secluded courtyard in the imperial capital, it contrasts sharply with the hustle and bustle on the streets. A man was tied to the head of the bed, with his hands tied with cloth strips. He was dressed in a sky-blue robe, with a slender figure like bamboo. His ink hair was scattered on the bed, and a white cloth strip was tied to his eyes. Moonlight shone through the window on his handsome and unparalleled face, like a banished fairy in the moon sleeping soundly. The door creaked open and a young girl dressed in a light gauze dress walked in. Feng Qingjue held a book in his hand, glanced at it, then at the unconscious man on the bed. After several repetitions, it seemed as if he had made up his mind and closed the door. Recently, her old man has been nagging, regretting the past when he made foolish decisions impulsively and apologized to her late parents. From a young age, she disguised herself as a man, inherited the Feng family, and took over the Feng family army. They said she couldn't get married like an ordinary girl, at least she had to give birth to a child, otherwise she would be lonely and helpless when she grew old. Even if the old man died, she couldn't sleep in peace. She was so annoyed by these things that she couldn't bear it anymore, thinking that even if she didn't get married, she would still have children and could only find a man to be her child's father. She asked her confidants to search for candidates for her on the streets and alleys. As long as her appearance was acceptable, she was not picky. Sitting by the bed, she peeled off the man's eye-catching clothes. However, Feng Qin was completely stunned. The man in front of him looked like a weak scholar in his clothes, but underneath the clothes were strong muscles, indicating that he had practiced martial arts before. I don't know if Chunying and Xiai tied this man up. Feng Qingjue lay on top of the man, occasionally glancing at the fighting book on the bedside, and began to follow the pictures in the book. Her hands groped around the man's strong body, her mouth nibbled on his chest. After some movement, the man in bed showed no response, while she herself was so exhausted that she could hardly hold on and had not made any progress. Helpless, she had no choice but to sit up. Take out a small white porcelain bottle from the small bag around your waist, which contains 2 small pills. This is called love silk wrap, and it is said that it was a medicine prepared by her grandmother to obtain from her old man back then. My grandmother said that no matter how firm my will is, once I take this medicine, I will be controlled by its power and become restless and confused. She swallowed her emotions, and an indescribable sense of dryness surged throughout her body. The limbs gradually became sore and weak, and the body wriggled uncontrollably on the man's body. Breathing became scorching, and breath sprayed onto the man's neck. The man in bed also had a reaction at this moment. Shangguan felt carefree and confused, feeling someone pressing against him. He tried to push away the person on his body, but found that his hands were tied and unable to move. Shangguan's worry-free aura suddenly became sharp and dangerous, completely different from his previous elegant and jade-like performance. He wanted to break free from the constraints of his hands and bent his knees to push hard, but soon he was entangled in a pair of soft and thin legs, unable to use any force. The woman tied up on her body. Shangguan immediately thought of what had happened. He has been robbed by someone. However, it is unimaginable to kidnap a young official under the imperial capital without fear of power. Feng Qingjue saw the man wake up, but he struggled slightly. She looked up and saw that the man had not yet reacted, so she took the initiative to kiss the man's lips. Suddenly kissed, Shangguan Couple froze. The slender tongue stirred his tongue, and he swallowed a smooth small pill between his two tongues. He turned his head to avoid the opponent's attack and opened his mouth to spit out the pill, but it was too late. He wanted to speak, but found himself unable to speak. Starting from swallowing the unknown pill, somewhere in his body became excited. "You come, I won't." Feng Qingjue stood up and untied the cloth tied to Shangguan Couple's hand, gradually blurring his consciousness. "Don't try to run away, you have swallowed a string of love. If you can't enjoy the pleasure of fish and water, you will definitely die within half an hour." The evil fire in Shangguan Couple's body, which had been raging under Feng Qing's unfamiliar movements, has finally been liberated. He turned around and changed positions with Feng Qing. Shangguan Couple pressed on Feng Qingjue's body, gripping her wrists with both hands to stop her every move. He could feel the power of medicine spreading within his body, catalyzing the flames of desire. He pulled off the white cloth from his eyes, wanting to see the woman beneath him, but before him was still a darkness. This woman not only did it mute him, but it also blinded him. Feng Qingjue's eyes became blurred as she struggled, but the worry-free power of Shangguan made it difficult for her to move. She felt her consciousness gradually blur, overwhelmed by the surging desire. Time flows slowly in this small courtyard, and their bodies intertwine with each other, igniting sparks of passion. For Shangguan Couple, such a situation was something he had never experienced before. Shangguan's family had ancestral teachings, and there should be no other women besides his wife. However, since it was the beginning of a chaotic family, he had always followed the rules and had no women around him. In the current situation, although he understands that all of this is the result of emotional entanglement, he still cannot resist the impulse brought by the medication. An entire hour passed, and the clouds and rain stopped. Feng Qingjue's rationality gradually returned, and he raised a knife and fiercely slashed at Shangguan Couple's neck. Pushing aside the man who had fainted on him, he got out of bed and put on a set of clothes that his subordinate had already prepared on the small table next to the bed. Leaving, courtyard. Feng Qingjue returned to the mansion and walked wearily into his room. She just had a night of pleasure with a man, and now her body is extremely sore, which is even more tiring than her previous day of practicing martial arts. She just wants to lie in bed motionless. Knocking. The door was knocked by someone. "Master. The water is ready." Got it." Feng Qingjue lay on the edge of the bathtub. All the medicine in the bathtub was made by boiling pregnancy aid herbs. Soaking in the medicine bath, her body and mind slowly relaxed, no longer so tired. She closed her eyes and unconsciously stroked her flat belly with her hand. "I hope to succeed in one go. Otherwise, in order to have a child, she would have to find a way to find a man to have a child. Just thinking about it, she thinks it's troublesome." Chapter 2. Achievement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the hall of Prince Feng's mansion, the servant placed the breakfast of the two masters on the dining table. Old Prince Feng sat at the table, looking at a dish of green onions mixed with tofu, fried bean sprouts, sour and hot potato shreds, lotus seed congee on the table. Why are they all vegetarian dishes? Feng Lao Wangye is dissatisfied with this morning's breakfast. As a martial general, he has always had meat in every meal and enjoys it. The old butler who was serving beside him said, "It was the order of the prince. He said, as you are getting older, you should eat less greasy meat and more vegetarian dishes. This is good for your old health." Just because of his troubles, my king's health is better now. Mouth is filled with complaints, but the corners of the mouth unconsciously rise. Yeah. The old prince's health is really good. The other day, the commander of the imperial army around the emperor fought back and forth, said the old butler, saying what the old prince liked. That's it. Feng Wangye began to boast to his old friends about the day when he and his young man returned victorious. Compete with envoys from the north in the palace and beat them to pieces. Competing with Commander Xia again, that was truly exciting, and in the end, he narrowly won a move. Grandfather. A cold and quiet voice sounded at the door. Feng Qingjue was dressed in a white robe, with silver silk embroidered with auspicious clouds at the cuffs and hem. She wore a white jade belt around her waist and white boots, and a white jade crown on her head. She wore a beautifully carved silver mask on her face, covering her entire face above her nose. Her thin lips lightly pursed, her eyes calm, as if she couldn't arouse any interest in her, and she looked like a cold and unparalleled nobleman. Prince. The old butler saluted Feng Qingjue. Grandpa Fu. Feng Qing absolutely nodded as the old butler. Oh my. The old man can't bear the burden of the prince, this is Grandpa. The old butler happily patted his thigh. All right, old man. You can still afford to be his grandfather with me for the rest of your life, said old Prince Feng. I have a few words to say to Qingjue, you guys go down first. Yes. Knowing that the old prince and the prince had something important to say, the old butler ordered all the servants in the hall to come down and guard the door of the hall himself. Feng Wangye saw the old butler guarding the door by himself, lifted the chair made under his buttocks, and sat down next to Feng Qingjue, mysteriously saying, "What's going on?" "What?" Looking at Feng Qingjue's bewildered expression, old Prince Feng said with resentment, "Did you succeed last night?" Feng Qingjue took a bite of tofu and nodded. "Not bad." The old prince nodded proudly when he saw Feng Qingjue, "That young man is fine. I fell in love with him at a glance and personally tied him to your bed." Feng Qingjue paused as she drank lotus seed soup. She had always thought that the man was tied up by Chunying and Xie on the street, but to her surprise, it was the old man who made the move. "For your sake, I disguised myself on the streets of the imperial capital and selected the best one from them. I'm afraid you won't be able to let go in the end. Before coming back to the imperial capital, I had the audacity to ask for love from that old witch." Thinking of the old witch's gaze at him made his back tingle. After knowing that he was going to give Qingjue medication, he generously gave him some powerful sleeping pills, such as some soundlessness pills, blindness pills, and some herbs that help with pregnancy. He used all those drugs last night without thinking. Feng Qingjue looked at the old man and realized that the man who spent the night with her was not tied up by Chunying and the others on the street, but was personally selected by the old man. "If Grandma's medicine is fine, we can set off the day after tomorrow to return to Qingyue Pass." "Old witch's medicine, shouldn't you ask? Otherwise, you." "Dad was conceived by me and her once. Still, while I was seriously injured and on the brink of death, I took those fertility aids and did nothing to him." The old prince didn't say anything later, nor did he feel embarrassed to say it. "Grandfather, don't call your grandmother that way. She will get angry." "What's wrong with you? It's been shouting for decades." The old prince muttered softly. "Every time I come to find her, she has never taken the initiative to find me. People think that the men of our Feng Wang mansion have cheated on their wives, and the Feng Wang mansion has never had a female owner. Half of it is the fault of that old witch. I'm sorry." Feng Qingjue lowered her eyes, with a look of self-blame in her eyes. "The other half is me, if I'm not." "Qingjue, grandfather doesn't mean that." The old prince felt heartbroken when he found his obedient granddaughter showing a sad expression. He really wanted to pinch his mouth and make you talk more. "Qingjue, if we go back to Qingyue Pass, who will the emperor send to manage the retrieved Baiyue-10 cities, and who will be sent to guard the original Baiyue Pass? Throughout history, there have been 10 border cities, and the people who manage and guard them are different. They are afraid that the border will become one person's one word. Of course, Qingyue 10 cities are different because they are the fiefdoms of their Phoenix Prince mansion. The old prince quickly changed the topic. Those 10 cities, except for the soldiers who set up camps in the city, can be said to be empty cities. Everything has been burned down by the people of the northern desert. Those 10 cities are now hot potatoes, and anyone who takes over must be prepared to have a layer of skin burned off. Yeah. The old prince sighed. 23 years ago, the battle of Xuanyuan to seize the throne was too brutal. The 9 adult princes of the late emperor all participated, and even some century-old aristocratic families stood in line. Xuanyuan Kingdom took advantage of the severe internal turmoil in Xuanyuan and joined forces with Xia Kingdom to attack Xuanyuan. The army of Xia was stopped by the Feng family army outside Qingyue Pass, while the Han family army guarded Baiyue Pass. Because the Han family in the capital also stood in line, their opponents did not want them to win the battle, so they used measures to delay the support of food, grass, and weapons, resulting in the death of all the Han family men who were guarding Baiyuguan at that time, and the annihilation of the 200,000-strong army in Baiyuguan. The Xuanyuan army broke through the Baiyue Pass and seized the stranded grain, grass, and weapons. They planned to take Xuanyuan in one fell swoop. The people of the northern desert marched towards the Xuanyuan imperial capital, slaughtering all the people in the cities and villages along the way. The current emperor can no longer tolerate it and has killed his 8 brothers through tough means. After gathering the power of some aristocratic families who had begun to regret standing in line, as well as the support of 100,000 imperial guards and 50,000 Phoenix family army from the Phoenix Prince's mansion, he personally led his troops to resist the people of the northern desert. Although Xuanyuan achieved victory, he paid a huge price. Today, the Holy Emperor has defended the land after Yiling City, but the New Moon Mansion passing through the Northern Moon Pass has fallen into the hands of the people of the desert, and the people of that New Moon Mansion have been completely slaughtered by the Desert Army. So it's better not to stand in line, remain neutral, and guard our Qingyue Pass. Feng Qingjue's slender fingers caressed the edge of the blue and white bowl. Yes. The old prince nodded in agreement, then thought of something and said, Your Highness, most likely the people of the high-ranking official family will go to guard Baiyue Pass. Chapter 3. Entering the Palace. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 4. 5 years later. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the 4th month of Xuanyuan, everything else began to revive, and the greenery slowly covered the earth, spreading the scent of early spring. In April of the New Moon Prefecture, the residents had just taken off their jackets and replaced them with thinner spring clothes. A group of people stood at the entrance of the largest jewelry store in Xingyue Prefecture. The man led by him was wearing a silver-white robe, with soft and delicate ink hair, lazily tied with a silver headband at the back of his head. A pair of ink jade-like eyes, embedded in a smooth and fair jade-like face, his temperament is unparalleled in coldness. There is a tear mole in the corner of his left eye, which adds a touch of charm to his original peerless appearance, reducing a bit of coldness. What a peerless ice beauty, but unfortunately a man. The man held a little boy in both hands. The 2 children were almost identical. 2 little dolls around 4 years old, wearing clothes made of bright red silk, with a gold collar hanging around their necks. The 2 sides of the gold collar are engraved with peace and good luck. It is called white, tender, with eyes as transparent as obsidian, very cute. The only difference between the 2 children is the one held by the right hand, which has an extra tear stain on the corner of the left eye compared to the one held by the left hand. 2 dolls, as cute as the dolls in Nian's painting. There are 2 beautiful women behind the man. Autumn Moon was wearing a simple and elegant lotus-colored long dress, dignified and atmospheric, with 2 small dimples at the corner of her mouth. Xia Yi was dressed in a crimson long dress, with a bright and bold smile on her face. They walked into the 3-story jewelry shop. Human building. In the stunning eyes of the people. The lobby is decorated in a grand manner, and most of the shops are decorated with simple women and girls picking jewelry on the first floor. The girls in the shop instinctively lowered their heads as they looked at Feng Qingjue's face, with a faint blush on their faces. The shopkeeper of the jewelry store saw the clothes and attire of Feng Qingjue and others, and immediately walked out from behind the counter to personally greet them. A few guests, what kind of jewelry accessories do you need? Shopkeeper, show us all the best jewelry you have here. Xia Yi spoke and then wrapped her hand affectionately around Feng Qingjue's arm, gently leaning her head against his shoulder. Master, you promised me last night. Okay. Feng Qingjue let go of the left hand holding her eldest son and doted on Xia Yi's nose. The shopkeeper heard their request and knew that these were major clients. A few, please follow me. Immediately turned around and led Feng Qingjue and a few others up to the second floor. Compared to the first floor, there are not many people on the second floor, but they are all ladies and ladies dressed in luxurious attire, indicating that they are either wealthy or wealthy. As soon as the shopkeeper went up to the second floor, he instructed the young man on the second floor to take out the best jewelry from the store. In no time, a young man took out a batch of exquisite jewelry and placed it on the counter. These jewelry pieces are made of high-quality gemstones and precious metals, each shining with a brilliant light. Feng Qingjue and a few others walked to the counter and carefully observed the jewelry. Shopkeeper, are they all jewelry? Do you have a jade pendant? Seeing his eldest son speak, Feng Qingjue immediately asked the shopkeeper to bring out some jade pendants. Okay. Immediately. The shopkeeper instructed the young man to bring some excellent quality jade pendants and put them on the counter for him to choose from. In order for the two young masters to also choose, the discerning young man brought a stool and asked them to stand on it, slowly selecting the accessories they liked. The ladies who were originally picking jewelry on the second floor glanced at Feng Qingjue's family with dissatisfaction and jealousy in their hearts. They were not the original residents of the New Moon Mansion. New Moon Mansion is an empty city that was just recaptured from the people of the Northern Desert 5 years ago, and has never given up on suppressing aristocratic families since Emperor Wuxuan ascended the throne. When the court ordered immigrants from populous prefectures, the poor people were the first to come here. Some aristocratic families felt that they couldn't survive in their original places, and over the course of 3 years, their entire family slowly migrated here. Yumantang is the largest jewelry store in Xuanyuan Prefecture, and each city in Xuanyuan has its own sub-code, so their jewelry is naturally the best. Ladies and ladies used to customize jewelry at Yumantang in the past, and now it's the same. No one knows that the best jewelry accessories in Yumantang will not be placed on the display cabinet, and will only be placed separately for the selection of important people and some truly wealthy families. And this family in front of us not only has an impeccable appearance, but also boasts magnificent clothing and accessories, clearly a wealthy family. Some young ladies envied each other, thinking that if they could marry the man in front of them, they would definitely live a carefree life, even if they were a concubine. The shopkeeper's attitude was very respectful, and he personally handed a priceless jade pendant to the young master in front of him. Young master, this small and exquisite green jade pendant is the best among us. Both the texture and workmanship are top-notch, and it is also the most suitable for you, young master. De Bao took the green jade pendant handed over by the shopkeeper, looked at it repeatedly, and liked it more and more. I thought to myself that this jade pendant would fit perfectly on the small sword that Uncle Han gave him. Dad. He looked up at Feng Qingjue, the meaning in his eyes was self-evident. Chapter 5. The Arrogant Feng Baozhu. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Bao, do you have anything you like? Feng Qingjue saw that his eldest son had chosen his desired jade pendant, so he began to ask his youngest son. Bao looked around and selected the thumb-sized white jade gourd, as well as the 9 linked rings made of jade. Xia Yi was holding a golden hairpin with a large ruby butterfly love flower in her hand. The ruby was carved into a red flower, and the butterfly on the hairpin was wrapped with gold wire. The butterfly looked lifelike, as if it was about to fly at any time. Autumn Moon fell in love with a set of elegant and simple headpieces, a jade bracelet made of glass. Seeing that everyone had chosen it, Feng Qingjue waved his big hand and wrapped it all up. Also asked the shopkeeper to wrap all the remaining jewelry heads from Xia Yi and Qiu Yu. Okay. The shopkeeper happily ordered the young man's jewelry box, but he himself took his abacus from another young man and peeled the abacus beads on it. Master, the total amount is 464 taels of silver. I'll give you a small change, 4,600 taels. Are you taking it yourself or should we deliver it to your residence? As soon as the shopkeeper spoke, the ladies on the second floor took a deep breath. The legitimate daughters of some high-ranking nobles only have 5,000 taels of silver at the bottom of their wallets when they get married, which is why women who are more favored have so much silver. Some illegitimate women gave 300 to 400 taels of dowry silver and then sent them away. Some ladies pretend to be looking at the jewelry in their hands, but their ears always pay attention to the movements on Feng Qingjue's side. Under the envious gaze of the ladies, Feng Qingjue gave money and said, "Send it to General Han's mansion." The shopkeeper was surprised to hear that it was General Han's residence. You should know General Han, but he is the new rising star in the Northern Moon Army. Who asked you to wrap up the red jade hairpin? As soon as the words fell, a red figure ran over from the staircase on the second floor. Her eyes flickered with anger as she rudely snatched the hairpin from Xia Yi's hand. Feng Qingjue frowned without getting angry and said, "I have already bought this hairpin. Do you want to forcibly snatch it?" The woman heard Feng Qingjue's voice and her gaze shifted towards him. At the moment I saw Feng Qingjue's face, I was a bit stunned. So what about forcefully grabbing? This hairpin was the one miss I first noticed. Feng Baozhu arrogantly lifted her chin and pointed the hairpin she had snatched at Xia Yi. Such a slut, she's also worthy of grabbing hairpins with Miss I. Feng Baozhu looked up and down at Xia Yi, his mouth curling, just like those women in her father's backyard. She felt dirty even after looking at them. You. Xia Yi was a bit angry and had never dared to say that to her. She wanted to go up and slap this arrogant woman, but Autumn Moon stopped her. Autumn Moon took a step forward, smiled faintly, and bent down to give Feng Baozhu a blessing. "Miss, be well." Autumn Moon exuded a scholarly aura. Trading emphasizes a first-come, first-served approach. This hairpin has already been purchased by our master. "Miss, why don't you take a look at the other jewelry in Human Building? Do you know who I am? I am in this new moon mansion." Baozhu. Feng Baozhu was about to speak when she lost her temper. A beautiful and dignified noblewoman walked up from the staircase, with slightly deep legal lines on both sides of her mouth making her appear stern and rigid. "Mother." Feng Baozhu shrunk her neck and spoke weakly. "Madam Feng." The shopkeeper breathed a clear sigh of relief when he saw your lady. He glanced awkwardly at the red jade hairpin in Feng Baozhu's hand. "I'm really sorry, Miss Feng's favorite hairpin has been sold by the small shop. If there are hairpins of this quality again next time, the small shop will definitely notify your mansion first." The shopkeeper first apologized, then secretly accused Feng Baozhu of taking advantage of the hairpin that someone else had bought and wanted to snatch it. "I bought another good one. Next time I have a new product, let Feng Fu choose it first." Madame Feng walked step by step and glared at her daughter. "Little girl, I have been spoiled by our elders since I was young. I have offended you so much. Please forgive me, young master." Mrs. Feng took the red jade hairpin from Feng Baozhu's hand and placed it on the counter, gesturing for the young man to wrap it up for Feng Qingjue and the others. "Mother. This is something my daughter has been interested in for a long time." Feng Baozhu murmured softly, saving several months' worth of money for this hairpin. Seeing Feng Baozhu being suppressed by Madame Feng Qingjue and others left with peace of mind. Young master, our store will be placed in the Han Mansion immediately. Han Mansion. That Han Mansion. Upon hearing the shopkeeper mention the Han Mansion, Feng Baozhu asked in confusion. Miss Feng, it's General Han's mansion, replied the shopkeeper. General Han. Madame Feng furrowed her brows slightly. Her master intended to marry Baozhu to General Han, and she was also satisfied with this son-in-law candidate. But today, Baozhu offended General Han's guest, and I don't know if the marriage can still be successful. Upon second thought, I realized that there were no elders in General Han's mansion. As long as General Han agrees to this marriage, what others say will not have any effect. Chapter 6. Prefect, Feng Sheng. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As soon as she entered the gate of the Han Mansion, Xia started cursing the ancestors of the Feng family for 18 generations without showing any resemblance. De Bao saw the fun and learned from Xia Yi's scolding words, cursing again. Feng Qingjue gave them a glare, and both of them silenced at the same time. General Han, the owner of the Han Mansion, sat in the main seat of the living room with Han Qingyi, watching the group of people walking in. Who caused us trouble? Miss Xia Yi is angry. I don't know someone named Feng Baozhu. If it weren't for Chuyue blocking me, I would have already knocked down that arrogant woman. Xia Yi replied, her eyes turning to think of something else. General Han has been in the New Moon Mansion for a few years, so I should know him. Indeed. Han Qingyi instructed the servants to serve tea. Uncle Han, that woman is really bad. She actually wants to snatch the hairpin bought by her father and Aunt Xia Yi. It seems like if she doesn't give her the hairpin, she will eat De Bao and Air Bao. De Bao pulled Air Bao and ran towards Han Qingyi, gesturing for Han Qingyi to hold him. Air Bao nodded, indicating that De Bao was right, and also reached out to Han Qingyi. Han Qingyi picked up De Bao and Air Bao one by one and let them sit on his lap. I know you. The youngest daughter of Feng Sheng, the magistrate of the New Moon Prefecture. I heard that Feng Sheng was not successful in his early years, and he failed to pass the imperial examinations for scholars year after year. His wife passed the imperial examinations for scholars in the year she was pregnant, and on the day she passed the imperial examination, she gave birth. Is the child born Feng Baozhu? Feng Qingjue asked. How wicked. Xia Yi opened her eyes wide, looking incredulous. Zibuyu's words of chaos. Autumn Moon remembered Madame Feng's attire of wearing gold and silver. General Han, her mother's family should also be very wealthy, and living in the Feng family may not be satisfactory. The following story is very simple. Madame Feng's family is a destitute aristocratic family. As the saying goes, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. His younger brother has no talent for reading, and she is also the eldest daughter in the family. In order to revive the family's past glory, Mrs. Feng married the most promising Tongxing master in my local area with a generous dowry, hoping that Feng could help her in laws after becoming an official. After having money, Feng Sheng began to be dishonest. Carrying Mrs. Feng's dowry silver, she began to squander it, and the concubine took in one room after another, neglecting her studies. The old lady of the Feng family felt that this was Mrs. Feng's fault, but her son couldn't pass the scholar entrance exam. The mother-in-law's difficulties, the concubine's provocation, and the husband's indifference, if it weren't for the company of her son, she might have been unable to sustain herself. Madame Feng's family did not want to lose a daughter and end up with half of the family's assets, leaving them penniless. Finally, I took a gamble and used 1,000 taels of silver to get Feng Sheng admitted as a scholar. I also used a huge favor to make Feng Sheng a jinshi. After enduring several years in the Ministry of Personnel under Feng Sheng, when feeling hopeless about promotion, A decree transformed a minor official from a 7th-rank official into a 4th-rank prefect. All of this happened so coincidentally. The day the imperial decree was issued happened to be Feng Baozhu's birthday. The old lady of the Feng family was superstitious and believed that Feng Baozhu was their lucky star. Both the Feng family and Mrs. Feng's family moved to the New Moon Mansion with the imperial decree of promotion. Madame Feng's family gained the power of Feng Sheng in the New Moon Mansion and quickly developed, what kind of favor can make the invigilator risk killing Feng Sheng and let go? Feng Qingjue asked. I don't know. Han Qingyi shook her head. However, during Feng Sheng's tenure as an examiner, an additional person was added midway. What person? Xia Yi was aroused with curiosity. Mr. Su. What? Except for 2 small ones, everyone in the hall was surprised. Su, the Grand Tutor, was the mentor of Emperor Wu Xian and also the neutral courtiers and aristocratic families who lobbied for the existence of Emperor Wu Xian's succession during the rebellion. It's true. After Mr. Su became the chief examiner of that year, he retired. What kind of human relationship can make a great scholar like Su Laofu do? Autumn Moon asked. I can't figure out what kind of person it is that someone like Mr. Su, who is full of knowledge, can do self-destructive things and even be despised by students all over the world. Feng Qingjue's eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the floating and sinking tea leaves in the teacup. Perhaps this is not human favor, but a handle. This handle can bring the entire Su family to ruin. A person like Mr. Su, how could he leave a handle on things? So this handle may not have been left by the old master, it could have been left by someone in the Su family. You actually found this step, are you suspecting the Su family? Feng Qingjue asked. Not only have I doubted the Su family, but you must have also doubted it, right? Feng Qing never denied it. Because there are too many things, there is always the Su family behind us, but there is no evidence. Master. Han, the butler, walked in from outside. The people outside the door are full of jade, saying that our guests in the mansion bought jewelry from them somewhere. Han Qingyi turned her head to look at Feng Qingjue. I bought it. Han Bo, take the things to Qin. Han Qingyi instructed. Yes. Upon hearing that it was something Feng Qingjue had bought, Han Bo respectfully withdrew. De Bao slipped off Han Qingyi's leg and said, I need to go back and hang my jade pendant on the sword. As soon as he said it, he bounced away. Bao looked at De Bao who had left, then at Uncle Han, and slid down Han Qingyi's leg before following De Bao away. Xia Yi and Qiu Yu also left with De Bao and Bao. Bao, still don't want to talk. Han Qingyi felt a little distressed about Bao's current situation. Feng Qingjue's eyes flashed with some sadness, and she shook her head. For some unknown reason, Bao has never made a sound since birth, not even crying. If it weren't for Bao opening his eyes since birth, Feng Qingjue would have thought he had died young. Chapter 7. Babies are going to do bad things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. General Han's mansion has been occupied by a wealthy and generous old man. How rich is this old man? I heard that he spent over 4,000 taels of silver on jewelry for his 2 beautiful concubines at Human Building. I bought the 4 courtyards next to General Han's mansion, just to live next to General Han. A rumor that had been dormant for 2 years in the New Moon Mansion once again swept through the entire area. That's because General Han is actually a sleeveless man. At the age of 27, he is already the father of several children in other families. Now, not to mention being a child, he doesn't even have a woman in the backyard. Still in love with his 2 twin sons of that wealthy old man, he wandered around the New Moon Mansion. 2 children buy whatever they want, completely indifferent to the price of things, as long as they like it, buy it. This rumor spread at lightning speed. If there was no one behind to add fuel, Feng Qing would never believe it. However, Han Qingyi didn't even pay attention to it herself, and she wouldn't worry about it either. Unlike her who had done nothing, his two sons planned to find out the people behind them and give them a hard lesson, especially his eldest son. Standing in front of a dog hole, the Bao bent over and crawled out, followed closely by Air Bao. The Bao held Air Bao and walked on the bluestone path of the New Moon Mansion, their small hands tightly clasped together, appearing exceptionally cute. Their destination is a tea house called Mingyue Tower, where many rumors about Uncle Han came from. Although the Bao is only 4 years old, he is a clever child. Through the conversation with the servants in the Han family, as well as with Aunt Xia Yi and Aunt Xiu, he knew that someone couldn't see Uncle Han well, so he spread bad news about him. He decided to go investigate with Air Bao on the spot. Although the two are still children, they know that words can be intimidating. To give Uncle Han a bad word, a profound lesson. He also brought the itching powder that his great-grandmother gave him. His great-grandmother said that this itching powder would make him extremely itchy as long as it touched a little, and it was specifically designed for him and Bao to defend themselves. The Bao and Air Bao walked cautiously all the way to the Mingyue Tower. The tea house was bustling with people coming and going, full of a noisy atmosphere. The waiter in the Mingyue building saw two children standing at the door of the store, who looked exactly like each other. He thought it was the young master of that house who was out for fun. He accidentally lost his servant. Hurry up and ask which young master they are from. Do they not know the way back to the mansion? Do you need any help? Something like that. The Bao said he didn't need it and said seriously, my dad said he wants me and my brother to wait for him here. He will come soon. The shop assistant immediately understood that it was necessary to wait for someone. To prevent families of two children from being unable to find anyone. The shop assistant found a quiet corner for them to sit down in. And thoughtfully served 2 cups of sugar water to the Bao and Air Bao, saying, you guys just wait here. If you need to find me later, I'll call you back. Thank you, big brother. The Bao and Air Bao took the sugar water, and the Bao thanked the shopkeeper. The shop assistant saw that the Bao had been talking to him all along, but Air Bao remained silent. He gave Air Bao a strange glance and left without saying much. The Bao took out the itching powder given to him by his great-grandmother and pinched it in his palm, whispering to Air Bao. Air Bao, be careful and observe carefully. Listen to who is speaking ill of Uncle Han. Aha. Air Bao nodded obediently, indicating that he understood. Time quietly passes, and the tea house is still bustling with activity. The Bao began to feel a bit anxious. They all waited here for a cup of tea, but haven't found the person they're looking for yet. In a little while, it's time for their father to check their studies. If he doesn't go back, his father will find that he and Air Bao are missing, and his buttocks are probably going to bloom again. Why only his buttocks bloom? Of course it's because. Firstly, he is the eldest brother responsible for Bao. Secondly, Bao can sit quietly in any place for the whole day as long as you don't disturb him. As long as Air Bao does anything out of line one day, it will definitely be instigated by him. The Bao began to feel a bit impatient, but thinking of Uncle Han's kindness to him and Air Bao, he insisted on staying at the tea house and waiting. At this moment, a noisy sound came from outside the tea house, attracting the Bao's attention. He looked up and saw a girl dressed in gorgeous attire, leading a group of girls of her age into the Mingyue Tower and directly up to the 2nd floor. The Bao's eyes lit up, and he recognized the girl who was leading the way, who was the woman who wanted to snatch Xia Yi's hairpin a few days ago. He couldn't help but think that this might be a good opportunity, and he couldn't find anyone to speak ill of Uncle Han. He taught this woman a lesson so that she could vent her anger for Aunt Xia Yi. So he took Air Bao's hand and quietly followed them while the waiter was not paying attention. They looked at the group of girls and walked into a private room in a corner. The Bao carefully leaned his body against the door, his ears perked up and began eavesdropping. Feng Baozhu and the others spoke. Feng Baozhu is in the Yejian to talk to his sisters about the latest rumors. The man living in General Han's mansion is so beautiful that he is like a living man named Daji. Don't be fooled by General Han. In order to win over that handsome man, General Han went to please his two sons and almost sent half of the Han mansion out. Also, when the young man Yumantang went to deliver jewelry to the Han mansion, I saw the man sitting on General Han's lap with my own eyes. Speaking of which, Feng Baozhu couldn't help but cover her face with a handkerchief, pretending to be shy and not continuing, leaving a certain suspense for everyone present. The ladies all took a deep breath, not sure if these were good girls like them who could listen. Why does Feng Baozhu say bad things about Han Qingyi and others everywhere? This starts with his father. I don't know which one of his fathers is not right. He wants to marry her to an old man who has beaten her a ring, or a man without a background. And this man refused unknowingly. Feng Baozhu stirred the handkerchief in her hand, feeling a cold groan in her heart. She had not yet despised Han Qingyi, so she dared to despise her. Even if she wants to marry, she still wants to marry a prestigious family with a good family background. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but lower her head and blush slightly. For example, the Shangguan Shaojun from the Shangguan government is the best husband candidate in her heart. Upon hearing this, De Bao, who was hiding outside the door, originally wanted to teach the annoying ghost a lesson, but unexpectedly found a person who spoke ill of Uncle Han and his father. I can't blame him for teaching them a lesson. De Bao took out a small paper bag from his pocket and was about to commit the crime when someone grabbed the back of Fate's neck. Chapter 8. Encountering Parents of Shangguan by Chance. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Shangguan Town mentioned De Bao and asked him to look at him. At this glance, he was stunned. He had rare time today to accompany his wife at home, while his second son and old father were guarding Baiyue Pass. This morning, he found that his wife's jewelry was somewhat old, and he planned to accompany her out for a walk to add a few new pieces of jewelry to her. As soon as he entered the Mingyue Tower and wanted to have a cup of tea, he saw two sneaky little figures looking up to the second floor of the Mingyue Tower. The little ghost walking ahead, he noticed that he looked a bit familiar. Looking at it again, isn't this his grandson? Does the eldest son feel that his mother is bored in the mansion of the New Moon Mansion alone, and specially sent his grandson to accompany his wife? Following my grandson to the second floor, Shangguan Town realized something was wrong. I saw his great-grandson lying on the door like a thief, and then gritting his teeth, he took out a small paper bag from his pocket. Madam. Shangguan Town turned back in fear and looked at his wife, pointing to the big treasure in his hand. This is not his great-grandson. He only remembered now that his grandson is almost 8 years old this year, and this child looks like he's only around 4 years old. Shangguan lady was different from Shangguan Town's panic. She looked at De Bao, who was lifted up, and Bao, who was standing quietly on the side, and approached to hold Bao in her arms. Madame Shangguan gently caressed Bao's cheek, her eyes filled with concern. Can the child tell me where your parents are? Bao didn't speak, just quietly looked at Lady Shangguan. Put in the second treasure, what's bothering me? De Bao saw Bao being held in the arms of Shangguan lady and frantically struggling in the hands of Shangguan Town. He wanted to protect Bao. Hurry up and let go of me, you bad old man. The commotion outside the door alarmed several young girls in the elegant room. Feng Baozhu opened the door and came out first. When I saw the Shangguan couple, I immediately performed a junior salute. Hello, Madame Shangguan. Hello, General Shangguan. The girls behind her also quickly bowed. Feng Baozhu saw the two treasures in the arms of Lady Shangguan, as well as the big treasure held in Shangguan Town's hand. A hint of disgust flashed in his eyes, pretending to be surprised. Madame Shangguan, how could you be with the two young masters in General Han's mansion? Do you know them? Feng Baozhu asked, and she emphasized, General Han's mansion. Madame Shangguan smiled slightly and did not answer Feng Baozhu's question. She knew that there were rumors circulating in the New Moon Mansion recently about Qingyi and a man, and that there were noses and eyes. Of course, she didn't believe them. She knew that Feng Baozhu was the daughter of the governor. This girl looked unruly and stubborn, and at first glance, she knew she had been spoiled by her elders in the family. Sure enough, when she said about General Han's mansion, the young ladies behind her looked at the two children with an ambiguous gaze. The New Moon Mansion has developed rapidly in the past 5 years, but who would say that this is not a place where powerful people gather? But the few young ladies behind Feng Baozhu were all from prestigious families in the New Moon Mansion, and the rumors of Qingyi and a man naturally aroused the interest of many people. Madam Shangguan, how do you know the young masters in General Han's mansion? Feng Baozhu asked again. Shangguan's wife raised her eyebrows slightly and replied lightly. I don't know them, but I just think I'm congenial to them. I want to invite them to have some dim sum. Feng Baozhu was taken aback when she saw Lady Shangguan's answer as before. Who wants to? Woo-woo, Shangguan Town promptly covered De Bao's mouth and blocked his next words. De Bao looked fiercely at Shangguan Town and thought to himself that he must practice martial arts well and not be lazy anymore. Otherwise, how could someone lift him up like a little chick without any resistance, and De Bao would regret it in his heart. Feng Baozhu originally wanted to chat with Lady Shangguan a few more words to increase her impression of herself, but her gaze swept and Shangguan Zhen, whose face was almost turning black, could only reluctantly withdraw her thoughts. Then Baozhu will retire. After speaking, she turned around and whispered a few words to the young lady behind her, then led them away from Mingyue Tower. Children, please serve us some of the best pastries in your area, a pot of tea. Shangguan Zhen shouted downstairs and looked at the two children. And 2 more cups of brown sugar water. Okay. We'll be here soon. In the elegant room, Bao sat quietly on a chair, sipping on the moon pastry unique to Mingyue Tower, while De Bao stared at Shangguan Town's big eyes. Madame Shangguan took out a handkerchief, wiped the pastry crumbs from the corner of Bao's mouth, and then picked up sugar water to feed Bao. Kid. Who are your parents? Shangguan Zhen asked De Bao bluntly, and he noticed that the person across from him named Bao seemed to be speechless. The more I look at Guanjin, the more I feel that these 2 little dolls in front of me look very similar to his grandson. If it weren't for the age mismatch, he would suspect that his eldest daughter.in-law gave birth to triplets back then. Could it be that the eldest daughter.in-law got pregnant again when they left the imperial capital, right? A year ago, my eldest son wrote a letter saying that his daughter.in-law only gave birth to 1 daughter. His granddaughter should only be over a year old. Could it be that my eldest son has taken care of an outer room outside? The thought of this possibility makes Shangguan Town so angry. His family has ancestral teachings. Only when a man is 40 and has no children can he take a concubine. His son knows the rules of the family and dares to raise people outside. He doesn't take the ancestral teachings of the high-ranking official family seriously. It seems that he is going to request permission to return to Beijing and break his eldest son's dog leg. Mrs. Shangguan's expression became solemn when she saw Shangguan Town, and she has been married to her for almost 30 years. She naturally knew what Shangguan Zhen was thinking. Although she was also a bit angry in her heart, she calmed down and gently patted Shangguan Zhen's hand, indicating that he also calmed down. General, let's first understand the truth of the matter, the lady of Shangguan advised gently. Shangguan Town took a deep breath and nodded. He understood his wife's meaning. Impulsiveness is useless at this time, and one must first understand the truth before making a wise judgment. The most important thing is that the eldest son is still far away in the imperial capital. Even if he really wants to break his dog leg, it will take some time to figure out who the mother of the 2 children is and why they are in the New Moon Mansion. Don't worry at this moment. Shangguan Madam and Shangguan Town have completely forgotten about it. Feng Baozhu just mentioned that De Bao and Bao are the young masters of the good general's mansion. I also forgot about the recent rumors about Han Qingyi and a man who had 2 children. Don't forget, they actually have more than one son. Far away in the imperial capital, Shangguan Couple, who was handling official duties, suddenly sneezed. I thought happily in my heart that his lovely little daughter must be thinking of him. His father didn't know at all, because there were 2 children in the Crescent Mansion who looked exactly like his eldest son when he was young, and he was thinking about breaking his leg. Chapter 9. Shangguan Couple's Clich AS. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Dabao was defeated by the gentle attack of the Shangguan lady, and he couldn't bear it. He was frightened by the sinking black face of Shangguan town. Child, what are your names? Where are your parents? Asked Lady Shangguan, handing a piece of mooncake to Dabao. Dabao took the pastry handed over by Lady Shangguan and whispered thank you. My name is Dabao, my brother's name is Erbao. Let's come to New Moon Mansion with my father and a few aunts to check the accounts. Dad. Do you have a dad? Of course I have a father with Erbao. Dabao looked at Shangguan town strangely. He and Erbao certainly have a father, this guy is so strange. Shangguan Madam glared at Shangguan town, surprised and surprised. With the intelligence of her eldest son, if she dared to take care of the outer room, she must have been fully prepared. What is your father's name? Mrs. Shangguan asked calmly. Dabao hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to answer. Still speaking up, our father's name is Bai Xian. What's your mother's name, then? Madame Shangguan is like a hunter, step by step, trying to coax words from Dabao's mouth. Erbao and I have never seen our mother since we were young. Dad said our mother passed away when she gave birth to us. Mrs. Shangguan's face slightly changed. She didn't expect Dabao to answer like this. She looked at Shangguan town and the meaning in her eyes was very clear. His eldest son not only takes care of the outer room, but also abandons it from beginning to end. The relatives in the outer room helped raise 2 children, but why is it said to be relatives in the outer room? Take a look at the clothes and accessories worn by the 2 children, all of which are exquisite and valuable. How could outsiders treat 2 unrelated children so well? Only family members would do this. Lady Shangguan never thought that if someone really has money at home, how could they become someone else's mistress and raise a few male pets on their own? Isn't it nice? It can only be said that her eldest son did something that made the 2 of them focus on blaming Shangguan Couple. Dad said that our mother is a beautiful and kind woman. She worked very hard when she gave birth to us. Dad used many valuable medicinal herbs but couldn't save her. Otherwise, with the medical skills of my great-grandmother and grandmother, how could she not be saved? It can only be said that my mother was really powerless at that time. Dad said he loves our mother very much, so every year on her death day, he personally takes us to worship her. He also told us that he won't remarry and will live with me and Erbao. Shangguan town's face was calm because he was so angry that he had no expression on his face. He had already begun to ponder what kind of stick to pick and what kind of leg beating would not break immediately. Madame Shangguan was taken aback for a moment, feeling like something strange couldn't be remembered. She only felt that the family in the outer room were really kind to the 2 children, and even took them to worship every year. Your father is really good to your mother, is that good to you? Madame Shangguan couldn't help but ask. Dabao thought for a moment, then nodded and said, Dad is very kind to us. He plays with us every day, teaches us how to practice calligraphy and martial arts, and even tells us many beautiful stories. Madame Shangguan carefully examined Dabao's eyes. Although the child was a bit mischievous, the firmness and sincerity revealed in his words made her somewhat moved. It seems that their father really loves them and educates the 2 children very well. Where are you living with Dad now? Mrs. Shangguan continued to ask. We are currently living with Uncle Han, and the house my dad bought has not been cleaned yet. Uncle Han. That Uncle Han of yours. Shangguan town spoke up and suddenly remembered what Feng Baozhu had said, saying that the two little dolls seemed to be the young masters of General Han's mansion. As far as he knew, there was only one general surnamed Han in the New Moon Mansion. Are you talking about Uncle Han, Han Qingyi? Han Qingyi, Lady Shangguan has also reacted. Rich master, two identical twins, the father of these two children is the other one who was handed down with Han Qingyi. De Bao and Air Bao exchanged a glance, then nodded to confirm Shangguan Town's speculation. That's right, we are currently living in Uncle Han's mansion, De Bao replied. After the news was confirmed, Lady Shangguan's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Han Qingyi was one of the soldiers who were left here by the Phoenix King 5 years ago. From a small centurion, he gradually became a 5th-grade cavalry general through 5 years of fighting. You should know that in the military, it is difficult to achieve the 5th grade in just 5 years without a support. She once heard her father in-law and husband talk about him, and Han Qingyi still has a lot of room for improvement, which indicates that his ability is very strong, probably not even comparable to her second son. Why does your father live at General Han's residence? Although Lady Shangguan doesn't believe that Han Qingyi has a broken sleeve, she can't stop a heart full of gossip. Uncle Han is my father's life-saving benefactor. Once, my father encountered a robber while doing business, and it was Uncle Han who saved him. So it's like this. With a lifelong friendship, she became a friend who talked about everything, as Lady Shangguan understood. Shangguan frowned slightly, and De Bao knew everything about them, indicating that the children had no intention of being wary of others. But he always felt something was wrong. Madame Shangguan looked at the innocent child in front of her, her eyes filled with complex emotions. If it were also a child born to her daughter-in-law, it would be great. Unfortunately, it was born out of wedlock. At this moment, the door was knocked on from outside. A cold male voice came from outside the door into the elegant room. Two young masters, it's time to be mischievous. It's time to go home and not let the master get angry. Shangguan Town opened the door and saw a middle-aged man in black and strong attire standing outside at some point. The man's breath converged, indicating that he was a practitioner. De Bao and Air Bao heard familiar voices and quickly came out. Uncle, why are you here? De Bao asked. Of course they came to pick up the two young masters. Answered Yi, when you climbed the dog hole, the master watched from the side and said that since the two young masters love climbing the back dog hole so much, they should go back and climb slowly enough. Ah! De Bao let out a sigh. A couple from Shangguan Town clasped their fists and said, my two young masters are really mischievous, causing trouble for both of you. No. These two children are very cute, very similar to my eldest grandson. My husband and wife felt very kind and left them to eat some dim sum. Shangguan said. I have already settled the account, please don't mind, both of you. After finishing speaking, she picked up a little one in one hand and left downstairs. Uncle, how do you know where I and Air Bao are? Since the two young masters left the mansion, someone has followed you. Otherwise, how could the master rest assured that these two troublemakers secretly slipped out of the mansion? Chapter 10. Solving Rumors. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Two small figures shuttle back and forth in the dog hole in the Han Mansion courtyard. De Bao is a mischievous child, and Air Bao's personality is too quiet. Everything he does is led by De Bao. Feng Qingjue watched as De Bao and Air Bao both climbed back and forth 50 times in the dog hole, feeling that the punishment given to them was almost enough. Calling De Bao and Air Bao to the front, he said, you two know you're wrong. Her tone was faint, as if it was a trivial matter for him for De Bao and Air Bao to sneak out of the mansion. De Bao and Air Bao looked at each other but didn't speak. They knew it was not right for them to sneak out of the mansion this time, but when they thought of someone saying bad things about their father and Uncle Han, they couldn't help but want to go and deal with that person. Do you know how many people will be punished for sneaking out of the mansion? Feng Qingjue's voice became serious. You don't need to worry about adults' affairs, you just need to do what you need to do well. Bao lowered his head. I know, Dad, and those people said bad things about you and Uncle Han, they didn't sound good. I want to teach those who spread bad words a lesson. Oh. You know who did it. Bao nodded. I started telling Feng Qingjue about what happened today, saying it was the rumor spread by the woman who robbed Xiaoyi last time. He and Bao were supposed to prescribe medicine to those people, but they were unsuccessful and stopped. The person who stopped him seemed to have the surname Shangguan, and he heard Feng Baozhu calling him Shangguan's wife. Also, those two couples said that he and Bao looked like their great-grandson and were secretly inquiring about their parents. Whatever name he called, he was fooled by his half-truth and half-falsehood. Speaking of which, the little one proudly straightened his chest. Do those two people think he's Bao? Just give him 2 pieces of mooncakes and be obedient. He is my father's future right-hand man, how could he be fooled by a little bit of petty gain? Feng Qingjue's face darkened as she listened to Bao's description. She let this matter ferment because Han Qingyi let it go and she didn't want to pay attention to it. On the surface, she was just a merchant, and even with a 5th-rank cavalry general standing behind her, in the slowly developing New Moon mansion of a noble family, it was nothing. For those with power, merchants are the lowest among scholars, farmers, and merchants. But now, she can't think so anymore. Both of her children can stand out for him, which makes it impossible for her to sit idly by. She looked at Bao and Bao and pondered for a while. Bao, although you made a mistake this time, your original intention was right. You wanted to teach the person who bullied your father, Uncle Han, but you used the wrong method. Feng Qingjue looked at the 2 children and his tone became gentle. Bao and Bao finished listening, and a hint of doubt flashed in their eyes. Didn't their great-grandmother say that if someone bullies them, they can use itching powder to teach them a lesson? Although they are young, they understand a truth, which is to bully those who love them, that is to bully them, and of course, they must go and teach the bad people a lesson. Bao looked with his little eyes and climbed the dog hole more than 50 times. He nodded decisively, indicating that he knew he was wrong and would not sneak away again in the future. You go back first, remember, don't sneak out of the mansion again in the future, Feng Qingjue finally advised. Bao and Bao agreed, then turned around and left. At the same time, in the front courtyard of the Han mansion, Han Qingyi listened to the butler Han talking about a series of events caused by Bao and Bao secretly leaving the mansion. Ah! Han Qingyi sighed. Han Bo, about me and Qing. Cough. Is the rumor about Xiaoxian really spreading really strong? Said Han Butler to Han Butler. I thought this rumor would be the same as last time, spread for 2 or 3 days and it would be okay. The butler Han twitched his lips and said to himself. General, don't you think about it. Who was the person who was discussed with you last time? They are the king of the land of the New Moon Mansion. You used to enjoy listening to rumors, but the Prince Rui of Rinjia didn't like it. With a word from Prince Rui, who would say anything about you and Prince Rui in the New Moon Mansion, unless you don't want to continue living in the New Moon Mansion. This time it's different. Mr. Bai is a businessman, and with the help of someone else behind him, this rumor is getting bigger and bigger, isn't it? Who is it? Han Qingyi asked. It's the daughter of the governor's family, replied the butler Han. Feng Baozhu. He is not very familiar with Feng Baozhu, and only knew about such a person when he was young. Qingjue and Feng Baozhu had a chance encounter and had some minor friction. Is it because of this incident that rumors have been spread about him and Qingjue? Then Feng Baozhu is really full and has nothing to do. According to the scout from Feng's mansion, it was reported that Mr. Feng intends to marry the general. Han, the butler, said this and secretly glanced at Han Qingyi's face. He knows the thoughts of this master, and there has always been a white moonlight in his heart, guarding him like a jade. It's just that this white moonlight is male in gender. At the moment when he found out that his general liked men, the butler Han felt that the sky was about to collapse, and their room was on the verge of extinction. However, later on, the butler himself was relieved. It's not important to be unparalleled, as long as the general is happy. Miss Feng learned about Lord Feng's decision. The next day, rumors spread about you and Mr. Bai in Mingyue Tower. According to the maid serving Miss Feng disdains your age, and she has a crush on you, so. Han Butler didn't say anything later, but Han Qingyi understood the reason. This is because I didn't have the courage to confront Mr. Feng head-on, which led me to come up with such a bad move. Use public opinion to stop Mr. Feng's thoughts. I won't see if he agrees to marry the Feng family either. General, should we take some measures to stop the rumors? Asked the butler Han. Ha, Han Qingyi sneered. Don't Feng Baozhu want to marry me? I will help her. It was whispered by Feng Sheng that Miss Feng and her little sisters sat in the Mingyue Tower for a while, and then rumors about me and Xiao Xian came out of the Mingyue Tower. General, this move is really ruthless. The butler Han couldn't help but exclaim in admiration if Mr. Feng were to know that the recent rumors circulating in the New Moon Mansion were spread by his own daughter. I don't know how he would feel. After all, rumors did indeed spread from the Mingyue Tower and were also told by Feng Baozhu himself to her ladies. Feng Baozhu, even the so-called called lucky star in the Feng family, is the beloved child of the old lady of the Feng family. Angered by Lord Feng, who is truly in charge of the Feng family, her life is still difficult. A letter was sent from the Shangguan mansion, which contained information about the Shangguan town couple condemning their eldest son Shangguan Wuwei and instructing the messenger to personally deliver the letter to Shangguan Wuwei and not to falsely use human hands.